could it be? But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2025 NFL Draft Prospects Series, your guide to the hottest, biggest, and hottest names of the 2025 NFL Draft. We're talking edge rushers. We're going to wrap up this position today. I'm going to give you 9 through 1, the best of the best that this draft, to me, in my humble opinion, has to offer. So this is a group that I think has very high potential. There's a high ceiling for this group of edge rushers that we're going to talk about today, but there's also some questions, right? There's some questions with some of them. Projections have to be made. Some of them fit is very important. Usage is very important. And then for others, can they continue to develop and blossom? And are the off the field things clean and going to be okay moving forward? Or is that an issue that requires further delving into, right? With that said, let's chop it up about this position and get to the meat and potatoes of what this group has to offer and who ranks where for me. So let's start at number 9 today. And number 9 is Michigan edge rusher Josiah Stewart, 6'1", 249. This is a guy that super impressed with watching him. And there's another guy, and you'll know when I get to him, were some of the best tape that I've watched, the most exciting, fun. So some of this process, it's all about enjoying what you're seeing. You know, some of these guys, it's a drag, it's a slog getting through their tape, right? Put you to sleep even. And then some guys, you're sitting up edge of your seat like, okay, what's he gonna do next? He was one of those dudes, man. High energy, you know, undersized, and that's the thing that's gonna knock him down people's draft boards, right? 6'1", 249. Not going to have longer arms, obviously, at 6'1", more likely than not, which we already know he doesn't have longer arms. So, you know, there's going to be some things that give people pause here, but the tape is self-explanatory. And you watch this guy, you know, set a physical edge, blow people up, get into the backfield, you know, relentless rusher, a guy that has a bevy of ways to get to the quarterback. He's got speed. He's got speed to power. He's got a crossover. He's got a spin move. He's exciting to watch. He's physical in the run game, sets a physical edge, can get to the ball carrier. There's not many things Josiah Stewart cannot do. Again, the thing that is going to ultimately hold him back is his size, right? When you watch him, you look at him, it's an easy thing to dismiss him because of, and we've seen this happen in the NFL before. And look, more times than not, they get this right when they bypass a guy because of size. More times than not, they get it right. But every now and again, you bypass a guy and he turns out to be the guy that I'm comping him to, which is Shaq Barrett, right? Out of Colorado State. Every now and again, you miss on a guy because he's not prototypical size and length that you're looking for as an edge rusher, but the qualities are there. The ability to get in the backfield, the ability to stop the run, the ability to get to the quarterback is there. But again, it's going to take the right fit. And you're hoping he transitions to the NFL well. And the game and the speed of it and the length of the tackles and the ability, the athleticism of these tackles and tight ends don't overwhelm him. And you hope he transitions beautifully and is able to get a long enough runway, because at 6'1", 250, it may take him 2-3 years to figure it out, right? Shaq Barrett didn't just burst on the scene with the Broncos and automatically become this dynamic pass rusher. It took him a little while. And he was a very solid piece of that 2015 defense that won the Super Bowl, that was able to, you know, come off the bench and give them quality snaps as a situational pass rusher. It took him a little while to develop his confidence and how to play in this league undersized. It took James Harrison. Remember how many times he got cut, right? James Harrison was cut like 13 times before he finally latched on with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it takes guys that are undersized a little while to figure it out, how to figure out, how do I make, this work to my advantage? But Josiah Stewart has the talent. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Some of the most fun tape to watch. He's a big ball of energy, empties the tank every time he's on the field, has the ability to win with speed, has a nice little, jump and rip and dip move, can win with power, right? Use that speed, convert it to power, can be physical in the run game, can find the football, can get in the backfield and make tackles for loss. I think this is a guy that, if put in the right position, and to me, he shouldn't have his hand in the dirt. I think he's a, 2-point stance guy. Let him stand up in a 3-4 defense as an outside linebacker and let him hunt, from there. And again, there's certain teams that fit that DNA profile. Generally, I think 3-4 defense, I go straight to the AFC North. Steelers in particular, Ravens do a little bit of that as well. Not as much as they used to, obviously, but I always think about that, division in particular, and the Steelers in particular. But there are other teams in the league that deploy a 3-4, and there are other teams that, and again, a lot of these teams now are multiple, right? You could get a 3-4 alignment on this snap, then they could be playing a, base, 4-3, or even front, as they call it. And so, again, I just don't think he's made to put his hand in the dirt. I think he needs to be in a 2-point stance, standing up, and I think he can be a difference maker, in that setting. So at number 9, Josiah Stewart, the Michigan edge rusher, is the guy that I think, has a chance to really be good in this draft if he lands in the right spot for his skill set and is given an opportunity to grow and develop and figure out how to navigate these murky NFL waters as an undersized edge rusher. So now we get to number 8. And this is a guy that's going to require some vetting, right, throughout this process. And he answered a lot of questions at the combine, and rightfully so. And he's going to probably have to answer plenty more during his top 30 visits, wherever those may be. Teams are going to have to be comfortable with the individual because the player on the field is undeniable. Of course, if you've been following his situation, you know exactly who I'm talking about. At number 8 for me is Marshall Green Wave edge rusher, or Thundering Herd. Marshall's the Thundering Herd. Tulane is the Green Wave. Marshall Thundering Herd edge rusher, Mike Green. 6'3", 251. So again, not the necessary prototypical size and length you're looking for at the position. But man, similar to Josiah Stewart, man, is his tape fun to watch. Man, is he explosive and dynamic. Very twitchy. One of the more twitchier edge rushers in this year's draft class, full of twitchy edge rushers. So he fits right in that regard. His speed is extremely noticeable. He's able to then convert that into power. He can hold up against the run. He's solid in that regard. Similar to Josiah Stewart, I don't think he's your traditional hand in the dirt, base 4-3 end defense, base 4-3 defensive end. I think he's more of a, 2-point stance, edge, outside, movement skills to drop into coverage, et cetera, et cetera. But, we'll see what teams decide to do with him. The explosiveness, the ability to make plays, to be around the football, again, all of this is undeniable. I think the question with him is the off the field stuff. He was dismissed from the Virginia program. You let him tell it. He left. They say that they dismissed him. There's, sexual assault allegations both in high school and in college. Part of the reason he left Virginia was because of those sexual assault allegations. Now, he's never been actually formally charged in either situation. And so it's just a bit murky, right? And so you've got to figure out, what are you getting here in Mike Green, the person, not necessarily the player. The player, everything's there. All the boxes are checked in terms of athleticism, physicality, energy, effort. Like, yeah, no, the size and the length and all that stuff that you would prefer him to be 260. You would prefer him to have 33.5-inch arms. That doesn't exist with him, but that's okay because all of the other boxes are checked. He's explosive. He's dynamic. But again, for him, going to be, can you convince teams that I'm a safe guy to spend a potential first or second round pick on, because he's not falling any further than the second round, despite some of the character concerns. Someone's going to take this guy no worse than the second round. So his talent suggests he's probably a first round pick ultimately. But my guy, and I'm a massive fan of this guy, so this should tell you how much I think of Mike Green. I comp him to Nick Bonito, the Denver Broncos edge out of Oklahoma, who burst onto the scene last year, really had his coming out party last season. I've been a big Nick Bonito fan since he was at Oklahoma. I could see the potential in Nick Bonito. Took him a little while to figure it out, but now he's here and he's not going away, and he's a problem. And I think Mike Green is very similar to Nick Bonito in terms of his ability to duck and bend the corner, be explosive, can get to the quarterback, flatten, and just be a presence on the other side of the line of scrimmage. This is a guy that I really, really think has a high ceiling. But again, do you trust him? Is he a good guy? That's the question that you have to ask. And if you can vet him and you feel comfortable, he's the guy that I think could be a difference maker at the NFL level. So now you go to number 7 on my list. And this is a guy that, if you ask me who has the highest floor of these edge rushers in this draft, this is the guy I'm going to tell you. Who's going to play a 12-year NFL career? This is the guy I'm going to tell you. I'm talking about Ohio State's JT Tuimoloau. Tuimoloau is 6'4", 265, and he's just a smart-ass football player. He just gets it. Not to mention that he's a good athlete. Not a tremendous athlete, but he's a good athlete. He's physical at the point of attack. He's strong, but he's just heady. And the guy that I'm going to comp him to is, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say he's just heady. He just gets it. One of the things I love about JT Tuimoloau is that he attacks the football. And there's so many guys that do not attack the football. A guy like Brian Arakpo used to drive me nuts because he was so consumed with wanting to get the big hit on the quarterback. Oh, I lit the quarterback up. He's screaming. And the quarterback had no idea you were coming. You were a free hitter. You could have stripped him of the football, but you decided to try to hit him as hard as you could. But he kept the football. Great. On the next play, on 3rd and 14, he completed a 19-yard pass and got a first down. Great job. Right? Get the football. And JT Tuimoloau goes after the football every chance that he gets. He is an absolute game wrecker. Some of his qualities, and I'm not comping him to this guy, but some of the qualities of how heady he is, he reminds me a lot of Andrew Van Ginkel. Like, you can't throw a wide receiver screen anywhere around Andrew Van Ginkel. He's going to pick the shit off, right? How many pick sixes does Andrew Van Ginkel have with quarterbacks trying to throw wide receiver screens to his side? He, sheds the blocker, or he just doesn't rush because he sees it coming, jumps in the passing lane, picks it off, takes it the distance. How many times have you seen Andrew Van Ginkel do that in his career? That's JT Tuimoloau. Like, he's just so smart. Gets his hands in passing lanes, will pick the football off. If he's running the arc and he can't turn the corner, but that quarterback's trying to throw the football, I'm going to smack that shit out of your hand as I go past, right? And so he just knows how to win. He just knows where to be. He knows, if I'm not getting there, let me get my hands up in the passing lane. right? And he'll take it out the air. He's not one of these guys just looking to deflect the ball. He's looking to catch this shit out of the air, like pull it down and take it the distance. He's fun to watch. He gets it. And the guy that I comp him to is Kyle Van Noy, who came into the league out of BYU, was drafted in the second round by the Detroit Lions, struggled early in his career, so much so that he was traded to the New England Patriots because the Lions were done with him. They couldn't get anything out of him. And Belichick figured out how to use him, like where he was best suited, which was as an edge rusher. The Lions were trying to try him as an off-the-ball backer and all of this stuff. And Belichick said, no, you just rush the quarterback. We'll drop you in the coverage here and there, but you just rush the quarterback. And he found a niche, created a niche for himself in the league. And he just had a career year last year, in year, 8, 9 of his career in Baltimore last year. I think he had double-digit sacks maybe for the first time in his career last year. So JT Tuimoloau strikes me as a Kyle Van Noy type of guy that's just gonna find ways to get the shit done. Got enough juice to win in this league, but plays with enough power it's a balance of both. And he's just heady, always around the ball. Similar to Kyle Van Noy, who's just always around the action, always getting the ball out, always where he needs to be, when he needs to be there, and can also get to the quarterback, right? I love JT Tuimoloau, and he's my 7th best edge rusher in this year's draft class. Now we go to number 6 on my list, and it's a guy that I don't think is on a lot of people's radar. This is my most underrated edge rusher in this year's draft class because I think he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to become. And this was the most fun tape that I've watched of anybody this entire process thus far as an edge rusher, him and Josiah Stewart. Their tape was just, fun to watch. But this guy is dripping and oozing with all kinds of athleticism and length and I think a skill set that's only going to continue to get better as he gets to the NFL level. The question will be, can he maximize the athleticism he has? Because he's not an elite athlete, but he's a very good one. He's an above average athlete with tremendous length. And you combine those two things, if he maximizes that length with the athleticism that he was blessed with, there's a problem brewing potentially at the next level for NFL teams trying to block him. I'm talking about LSU's Braden Swinson, 6'4", 255. This is a guy that started out his career, if I'm not mistaken, at Oregon, I think. Was underutilized there, really, was trying to figure out where he fit into the mix. Transfers over to LSU, and he really starts to blossom in that program. They figured out how to maximize him. This is a guy you can play everywhere. They bounce this guy all around this LSU defense. Off the ball, edge rusher, mugging the A-gap. They kicked him inside. He played some defensive tackle on obvious pass downs as well. You can run twists and stunts with this guy. Again, he's comfortable out in space. I actually was shocked that he didn't run a 40 at the combine. I think Daniel Jeremiah might have said the same thing because he's really athletic, right? But he's got a really good get off. He's long, right? He's leggy, right? One of these taller, longer edge rushers, long arms as well. But he can duck, he can bend that corner. And that's the thing that I think separates him from a lot of taller guys. Normally, it's the shorter guys that have that ability to bend that corner and turn it and flatten to the quarterback. He can do that at 6'4", 255. Does a tremendous job of winning that hand battle, right? Getting into the backfield. He shows off a tremendous spin move to go with the speed. Can also cross you over, get inside. But it's his hands and his ability to win initially off the snap and not allow you to recover that makes him a dangerous pass rusher. Go watch some of his work this year, and you're going to say, wow, this guy is pretty impressive. And so the thing that I worried about watching him was because he's so leggy. He's kind of angular in his build. Could he stand up against the run? Yes, he can. Right, very physical in the run game. Does a really good job of staying, using those long arms to lock out. Right, bench press that offensive lineman, that tight end, discard, get to the ball carrier. Right. So he's very active at the line of scrimmage in the run game. There's so many facets. And again, he really has only been at this level for 2 years. So in my mind, he's only going to get better. And his frame is one that I think you can add more weight to. I could see him getting to 265, at some point in his career. 265, I wouldn't be shocked if he could get all the way to 270, but you don't want him to lose any of his quickness and athleticism by putting on too much weight. But his frame could definitely add more weight. And that's what's going to, I think, make him even more dangerous at the next level, is that he will be versatile because you can stand him up, you can put his hand in there, or you can even kick him inside on obvious passing situations. You can run these games with him where he's the guy looping around, right? Where you've got the defensive tackle who you moved out to DN, coming in, taking two, he loops around, tight loop around, ducks that corner, sack, right? And so there's so many different things you can do with him. You can drop him into coverage. He's comfortable in space. I just think the ceiling for him is tremendous. Not to mention you got production from him this year at LSU, and you can see it, right? My comp for him is a guy that blew up the combine, and it made him a first-round pick. But their frame, similar. Their athleticism, I think, Adafi always, athleticism was off the charts. We're talking about Adafi Owe at 6'4", almost 6'5", 255, running a 4.37 40, right? So these two are not the same in that regard. But when you talk about quickness, I think their quickness is very comparable. Their length, very comparable. Their frames, very comparable. Adafi Owe has figured it out. He had double-digit sacks this year, right? So it took him a little while, but he figured it out at the NFL level. And I think that's going to be the same thing for Braden Swinson, except you're not going to have to spend a first-round pick to get him, right? So a lot of people, remember, Adafi Owe had really no collegiate production. People were really basing him being a first-round pick off of the sheer athleticism, the size, the frame that could add another 10 to 15 pounds on it. But that type of athleticism with that length, with that frame that could stand to gain more, you saw the raw ability. I see the same thing with Braden Swinson. Again, he's not going to be a first-round pick, though. But I see that type of growth, and I see the trajectory of his career and the arc of what it could be. Again, see if he can take full advantage of the things he was blessed with, and we'll see where he ultimately gets drafted, right? So that's my number 6 edge rusher. So now let's get to number 5, and now we're in the top 5, and we're at the creme de la creme of this year's draft class. And we start with Boston College's Donovan Ezeiruaku, 6'2.5", 248 pounds. This guy is silky smooth. He's twitchy. He's rocked up, at 6'2", 250. Again, is he the ideal size you're looking for? No, right? Obviously. But the skill set is undeniable. Unlike Mike Green, who is probably every bit as twitchy as Donovan Ezeiruaku, Ezeiruaku has a plan. And he's got a bevy of moves, and his move Rolodex is extensive. He's got I call it long arm of the law, but others people call it the pole vault, right? Where you just take one arm, you stab him, and you just drive him, right? Obviously, speed is his number one go-to. Speed, dip, rip, right? And he's mastered that. He's also every so often he'll flash the jump and rip, right? Which I love. I love the jump and rip because it changes the eye level of the tackle. You are here, right? So the tackle thinks that his hands need to be here. And then all of a sudden, you knock his hands down. Now you're down here, and tackles don't want to be up here. Tackles want to be here, right? So when you jump, you change their eye level, you knock their hands down, and now all of a sudden they're off balance. So he's got that. He's got a crossover, right? So hard outside, back inside. He's got a spin that is just beautifully executed. Sometimes I think he goes to the spin a bit too much. He gets a little bit too spin cycle happy. But there's so much in his bag. And he's physical against the run, a high energy guy. So you don't have to worry about the motor running hot or cold. He's going to give you everything he's got while he's out there on the field. I was impressed with him against the run. It varies from time to time, like how involved in the run he gets, because it's not a physicality thing, right? He's more than willing to get in the fray, stand up to a tackle, stand up to a pulling guard, stand up to a tight end. It's him being able to shed said tackle, tight end, etc., and get to the ball carrier. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. I've seen games where teams mercilessly run the football at Donovan Ezeiruaku, because running away from him and not blocking him and leaving him as the unblocked defender on a play is the wrong thing to do. Okay. He'll just track it down from the backside. So instead of running away from him and playing to his strengths, I saw teams just say, oh, no, we're going to run at 6. And he held up. But sometimes he wouldn't get off that block and make the tackle. And then that play would go for 18, 20 yards when he could have at least slowed it down, and maybe it would have only gone for 5 or 6. Right. So that's the only knock I have on him in terms of, the run defense. Obviously, he's not ideal size, length, all that stuff. I don't care. Right. Guys that can get to the quarterback in this league, they're special. And I think this is a guy that can get to the quarterback. The question will be, how consistent will he be? And can he be good against the run, good enough where he's not a liability at the NFL level? That's the real question, is can I keep him on the field consistently against run on first and second downs, teams that want to run the football, that aren't afraid to run the football and run it at him? Can he stay on the field consistently? Or is he a liability? I think that's one of the biggest questions he has to answer at the NFL level, but it's not because of a lack of physicality. Can he shed blocks, or will he get engulfed? My comp for him is a guy that at one point led the NFL in sacks one year, Vic Beasley. Coming out of Clemson, we felt the same exact way, sort of undersized, but man, can he get to the quarterback? Had a bevy of moves that he could go to, had the speed, had the spin, had the crossover. And again, all those things served Vic Beasley very well in the NFL. Like I said, I want to say it was 20, maybe 18. He led the league in sacks, somewhere around there, 2019, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I could see Donovan Ezeiruaku 4 years from now leading the NFL in sacks. I could see that. But the question for him is, can he hold up consistently against the run? If the answer is yes, I don't worry about him getting to the quarterback. He ran that 6.94 3-cone, which tells me all I need to know about his ability to bend the corner. Not that I didn't already see that watching the tape, but it's good to be able to put a number to it. A lot of guys run from the 3-cone as edge rushers because they know what that's going to identify. He didn't run from it. He ran towards it. Why? Because he knew he could do it. So he's my number 5 edge rusher in this draft. Checking in at number 4 is a guy that has tremendous upside as a rusher, was more of an off-the-ball linebacker at Georgia. I'm talking about Jalon Walker, Georgia linebacker, 6'1", 243. So right there, that tells you undersized for the position if you're going to put him at linebacker or edge rusher. And I'm going to tell you, normally I wait to the end to tell you who I'm comping him to, but a lot of what I'm going to be talking about involves the guy that I'm comping him to. So I'm just going to tell you right now, with those measurements and what he translates to at the next level, his whole situation reminds me so much of Haason Reddick. And if you remember Haason Reddick coming out of Temple, the conversation surrounding him was edge rusher or off the ball linebacker? Which one do you put him at? At 6'1", 240 coming out of Temple, it was hard to figure out if you wanted to. Could he stand up as an edge, right? Could he be an edge, a legit edge rusher? Could he stand up against the run? Was he tall enough? Was he long enough? Right? Was he strong enough? Did he have enough sand in the trunks? And so the Cardinals drafted him at like 14th overall, 13th, something like that, and decided, yeah, we're going to put him at off the ball linebacker. And it didn't go well. And then he finally gets out of Arizona. I think towards the end of his stay in Arizona, they realized we were fighting this the whole time. Let's just put him at edge rusher and see what he can do there. And then he starts to really blossom. He gets to the free agent market. He goes to Carolina, gets double-digit sacks there. He goes to Philadelphia, gets double-digit sacks there multiple times. And then, you see all of what people saw when he was a first-round pick. And I look at Jalon Walker, and I see a lot of the same qualities. Off the ball linebacker with rush capabilities, finds the ball better than anyone that I've seen in this draft. Now, obviously, I haven't watched all of the linebackers, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some linebackers in there that find the ball tremendously well. But right now, for the guys that I've watched, nobody finds the ball better than Jalon Walker in this draft. And can rush the quarterback, speed to power. No move Rolodex at the moment, nor a plan, because it's not what Georgia asked him to do consistently enough. But good closing speed and a very sure tackler. He played that Trayvon Walker role. So Georgia, they have this defense that they play where they rush four, but it's not your traditional four-man rush. And most programs can't get away with this because you don't have the talent to do it, but Georgia does. So with this four-man rush, what Georgia effectively does is they rush three guys, right? All right. So they line up a linebacker about 3 to 5 yards off the ball, and they collapse the pocket and force that quarterback to flush one side or the other. That's all those three guys are trying to do, is to get that quarterback to flush the pocket, vacate the pocket, and choose a side, left or right. And as soon as that quarterback chooses a side, then that guy that's essentially the fourth rusher, right? He's almost like a quarterback spy. As soon as that quarterback makes a decision, that guy takes off and goes and gets the quarterback. And Trayvon Walker, he thrived and flourished in that role. So did Jalon Walker, right? As the guy that was that off the ball, pseudo spy, the fourth rusher of that four-man rush, and then he go clean it up. And he's got some ability to rush the quarterback. You can see it. And now it's about honing those skills, consistently asking him to rush the quarterback. And I'm hoping teams learn from the Hassan Reddick saga in Arizona and just say, to hell with him. Like, you can, drop him in the coverage. He's comfortable. He did that at Georgia, all of that good stuff. But I hope teams just say, we learned from the Hassan Reddick saga, and we're just going to give this guy an opportunity to rush the quarterback, and let's see what happens. And if teams do that, then I think he's going to end up going in the top 10 of this draft. So that's really the question, because we saw what Hassan Reddick was once he was unleashed and turned loose as an edge rusher. And he didn't have to worry about the responsibility of being an off the ball linebacker. And so I think most people see Jalon Walker in this draft as a guy that can get after the quarterback and that should be allowed to do that. Again, the size, that's going to be the question. And he's going to have to consistently prove that he can stand up against the size that the NFL is going to throw at him, but in the run game, obviously. But he showed the ability to defeat blocks, to get to the ball carrier, in the SEC, which is, NFL junior, right? And so I don't think anybody has any issues with this guy setting a firm physical edge, discarding a tight end, standing up to a tackle, shedding him and getting to the ball carrier. He's shown the ability to do that off the ball already. So I think this is a guy that has a chance to be a dynamic edge rusher. And so we'll see what he ultimately is. But if he turns into Hassan Reddick, well worth the first round pick and a top half of the first round pick. All right. So now you get to number 3 on my list. and it's Tennessee volunteer edge rusher James Pearce Jr., 6'5" and a quarter, 245. We've talked about this guy a ton. This process because of initially thinking, oh, he might be available at the end of the first round. I don't think there will be any such luck with him being around. He blew up the combine, ran a fast 40, jumped really high, showed tremendous movement skills that all match up to what you see on tape. You're talking about this tall, long, rangy, explosive, and dynamic edge rusher. I told this story about James Pearce Jr. On one of these programs. I don't remember which one I was on, but I told the story of watching him on a play, and I forget against who it was, but I'm watching him, and he got off the edge so fast into the quarterback, and it wasn't a sack. The quarterback just looked up, and he was in his lap, and he just threw it out in the flats, and it was incomplete. And it was one of those like bootleg plays where a quarterback fakes the handoff, turns his back to the defense, and you have an unblocked defender there. You're hoping that he bites down on the run fake, or at a minimum, the guy that's crossing his face slows him down, but he lets him go into the flats wide open, and you throw it to him, right? Well, James Pearce said to hell with all of that. My job is to hunt quarterback. I don't care about your run fake. I don't care about the guy crossing my face going into the flats. I'm going to get the quarterback. And it was like he was shot out of a damn cannon. He got there so fast that the quarterback barely had a chance to turn around and throw the football. He barely got it away. He got there so fast, I assumed it was a blitzing nickel back because he was so fast, right? So I ran it back, and I said, "There's got to be a defensive back. That can't be who I think it is." Of course, it was him. And I was like, "God damn!" Those first two steps are electric, and he can bend that corner like nobody's business. And he's one of those long, I talked about Braden Swinson being able to duck that corner and turn it and flatten to the quarterback. Well, James Pearce does it on steroids, right? Where he's able to duck that corner, plant his foot in the ground, stick his foot in the ground, flatten to the quarterback, and finish. He is dynamic, speed-wise. I want to see him get a little bit stronger, right? Plenty strong in the run game, but I would like to see him use his length to bench press offensive linemen, tight ends, to give himself a better chance to disengage. A lot of times he'll just throw the shoulder in there, right? And like, hey, I'm gonna be physical here. I'm gonna throw that shoulder in there, but now it doesn't allow him to disengage and get to the ball carrier. But he's a guy that you have to block. You can't leave him unblocked on the backside of a play because he'll just come and make the play and blow up the entire operation. So he's a guy that has a spin move, right? And he's still learning how to add in other moves to go along with the speed that he presents, because the speed is so scary that all he really needs is one or two more moves. Like a crossover would be deadly, right? And I've seen him do that, but not consistently enough to where I'm certain like he knows that this is in his bag and that he can utilize this. And then the spin, it's a work in progress, but it's there. So he's a guy that is ascending as a pass rusher, physical enough in the run game despite his stature. And obviously, I think it's an easy comp. He reminds me of Leonard Floyd coming out of Georgia, just oozing all types of athleticism, length, and ability. And Floyd was another one of those guys, played off the ball at Georgia, but could rush the quarterback. And what do you do with him? There's no such questions with JPJ. You're putting him at the edge, and you're gonna let him, turn him loose and get him after the quarterback. It took Leonard Floyd a little while to figure out how to rush in the NFL, but once he figured it out, I think he's extended the shelf life of his career. I mean, now he's almost a hired gun. I think he was in what was he at last year? I can't remember where Gumby, I call him Gumby, Leonard Floyd was last year after spending Was he? I think he was in San Francisco last year, if I'm not mistaken. I think Buffalo just signed him, if I'm not mistaken. I think he got 9.5 sacks last year for the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. And then, you know, obviously he's spent time in other locales, but Floyd has been a really good football player. Really, really good football player. And so I see James Pearce Jr. being similar, except I think he can get to it faster. Took Gumby a little while to figure it out as a pass rusher. I think Pearce can come in and immediately have an impact as a pass rusher year one on some Aldon Smith type shit. Obviously, he's not that size, but he's got that kind of length and ability. So he's my number 3 rusher in this draft. So now we get to the top 2. And my number 2 is Mykel Williams, edge out of Georgia, 6'5", 260. And he played through an injury this year. So the numbers weren't necessarily eye-popping, but this dude is legit, man. And, you know, I was telling a joke to myself. Yeah, I talk to myself sometimes. And I was like, man, this Georgia defense is loaded, as it always is. How do you tell which one is Mykel Williams? And I said, just look for the offensive lineman whose shoulders are straight up and head is flying back like this. Just look for the offensive lineman who looks like he's holding on for dear life. Just look for the guy that looks like he just got his ass whooped upon contact. Then you'll find Mykel Williams. He's got a set of heavy mitts that absolutely blow back offensive linemen consistently, push them back on their heels, get them off balance, have them fighting for their lives in the trenches to stop him from getting into the backfield and making the play. Those heavy hands, coupled with premium athleticism and length, makes this guy, I think, a dangerous, almost can't miss prospect in this year's draft class. It's all about him staying healthy and him continuing to develop his craft. But all of the skills are there for him to be an absolute problem at the NFL level. I wrote this down in my notes. A big, long-limbed edge that's listed at 260 but plays like he's 285 with heavy hands, tremendous leverage. His leverage for a guy 6'5", off the charts, which is why you see offensive linemen like this, right? Because he's up under their pads, consistently driving them back, right? And above average hand usage and enough quickness to catch unsuspecting linemen off guard. Not overly twitchy, but enough juice coupled with technical skills to win consistently at the next level. So he offers you so many things in this package at 6'5", 260, right? Good hand usage, right? Good quickness. Again, not like super twitchy, but really good quickness, physicality, power, strength, right? And again, he plays like he's 285. So what does that mean? It means you can move him around, right? Doesn't mean you just put him at edge rush. You can let him stand up, 2-point stance. You can put his hand in the dirt in an even front. You can kick him inside as a 3-tech. Like at times at Georgia, he played over the center. He played nose, right? I talked about that 3-man front when it was a 4-man rush, and all those 3 guys was tasked with is just generating pressure, just collapsing the pocket, forcing that quarterback out and making a decision left or right so that Jalon Walker could get him. Well, he was one of those guys that was instrumental in that. To me, it's the guys that understand leverage, angles, and hand usage that win in this league at an unbelievable rate inside, right? Down along the defensive line in the trenches. And Mykel Williams understands angles. He understands leverage. He understands hand usage. When to use his hands, when to fire them off, when to swat down the hands of the offensive linemen, you know, when to get up under their pads, when to drive them, when to disengage, get the ball carrier, right? When to use the quick swim move, right? To get in the backfield, to knife in there, penetrate, get after the quarterback. He tracks the ball very well. Swim inside, balls running to the opposite side of the field, swims inside, 2 gaps over. Now all of a sudden he's making a tackle, 2-yard gain, right? Just a physically imposing presence that I think has the ability to grow as a pass rusher and become this dominating force, up front. My comp for him is Zadarius Smith. And I'm thinking more along the lines of, Green Bay Packers Zadarius Smith, the one that was notching 13 sacks plus every year, it felt like, for about a 3-year stretch or so there in Green Bay, where he was just damn near unblockable. That Zadarius Smith, right? This is what he reminds me of. And if he puts it all together, he will be an absolute problem at the NFL level. And we know these Georgia guys down in the trenches, generally, they don't miss, at the NFL level. They figure it out. It may take some guys come in and immediately they get it. Others, it takes them, like Nolan Smith, a year or two to figure it out. But generally, these Georgia guys that are big and physical, they figure it out at the NFL level. They don't really miss in the trenches at Georgia. He strikes me as another one of these guys that's going to come in here and be an absolute problem at the NFL level. I see it. Now it's a matter of him just putting it all together. So he's my number 2 edge rusher in this draft. And of course, you know who number 1 is. It's no surprise, no secret. Penn State's Abdul Carter is my number 1 edge, probably your number 1 edge as well. 6'3", 250. He's explosive. He's smooth mover with the bend and elasticity to cause real problems at the NFL level. Relentless energy and pursuit, outstanding speed rush, spin move, inside crossover rip, can play off the ball, does get stuck on blocks at times. If we were talking about having a knock on him or something that would give you a bit of pause, it's he does get stuck on blocks. You can run the football at him. I've seen teams do it. Ohio State did it, right? Ran the ball right at him continuously. It can be on the ground a little too often for me. And I put this in my notes. He's OC or off balance, then pushed onto the ground. So he can be a little out of control because he's so, explosive and dynamic. And he's this big ball of energy that just wants to get out there and wreak havoc. And in doing that, sometimes, he's just a little bit, he's doing a little bit too much and he's out of control. He's OC. And then all of a sudden, the offensive lineman catches him, just pushes him a little bit. Now he's on the ground. He's on the ground a little bit too much for my liking, if we were being honest with one another. So although a lot of people, the easy low-hanging fruit is to want to comp him to Micah Parsons, because let's be honest with each other. We haven't seen anybody move like this since Micah Parsons. So I get it. They both went to Penn State. They both wore the illustrious 11 jersey while there. I get it. But he's not Micah Parsons. Let's just make that abundantly clear. Micah Parsons is a one of one. He's a unicorn. And Abdul Carter is dynamic. He's explosive, but he's not, I repeat, not Micah Parsons. Okay. Micah Parsons was this destructive force that didn't even know what he didn't know when he was coming out of Penn State. Remember, Micah Parsons was an off-the-ball linebacker that you still had to figure out how to utilize, right? Like, he was this force that you could see, like, oh my God, this guy is ridiculous. Abdul Carter has those movement skills, but he's not as physical as Micah Parsons. He's not as explosive, and he doesn't have the balance, right? You're not just pushing Micah Parsons around. You can push Abdul Carter around. So they're different animals, right? Altogether. But because of what Micah Parsons has done, that's why Abdul Carter is able to benefit off of it. Remember, Micah Parsons went, 11th in the draft the year he was taken? And yes, there were some concerns with character off the field, the hazing incident at Penn State. But I don't think that's why he fell, right? I just think teams were kind of like, he's a tweener, is he a backer? The same shit we talk about all the time when a guy has the ability to rush and plays off the ball primarily in college, but you see the potential for him to be a pass rusher, and so you're just like, where do we put him? We don't know, and they panic, and teams pass on the talent that they shouldn't, which is why you're seeing a guy like Jalon Walker. Teams are like, nah, we're not doing that shit again. And same thing with Abdul Carter, not doing that again, right? However, to me, he's more Brian Burns. That's my comp for him. He's more Brian Burns, which is damn good, right? Than he is Micah Parsons, though. And so I don't fall into the trap of thinking this is Micah Parsons Jr., because it's not. He's more Brian Burns than he is Micah Parsons. Again, still damn good, if I may say so myself. But he is the best pass rusher in this year's draft class. And he has a chance to be really, really special. Again, he's got to learn how to be a pass rusher because, again, he did so much at Penn State. They asked him to do so much stuff that he didn't get to just focus in on being a pass rusher, which is why you project a guy like him or Jalon Walker when you just say, hey, don't worry about none of that other shit. It's almost like telling a collegiate athlete, hey, don't worry about school no more. Just focus on being the best football player or basketball player or baseball player that you can be. Now, all you have to do is focus all your energy on just being the best athlete you can be. It frees you up to become that much better, right? Same thing with Abdul Carter and other guys in this draft like Jalon Walker who, were axed and tasked. Same with Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. All these guys that were tasked with doing all of this extra shit, dropping into coverage, cover this running back out of the backfield, do this, do that. Hey, you just rush, right? And we'll move you around, right? We'll put you over the A gap. We'll kick you inside, right? But just rush. Don't worry about nothing else. Just rush. He's going to be a problem. So that is my list of edge rushers. I think this group has a chance to be really dynamic. There's some special athletes in this group. There are some guys that have tremendous ability. And again, it's going to come down to fit, coaching, how well these guys mature as they get into this league and figure out, the speed of the league, the length of these tackles, the athleticism of these tackles, the way things are schemed up. It's not college. You're not going to see a bunch of read option and all that stuff. You'll see that from time to time, depending on who you're playing against. But once they figure out the NFL game and they're able to adjust and teams figure out how to utilize these players the best, you could see these guys really thrive and turn out to be one of the better edge rushing draft classes we've seen in quite some time. There's just so many of these guys available. And the fit is going to be what's going to be key for some. But they're guys like Abdul Carter. It doesn't matter what defense you put him in. It doesn't matter what system he's in. There's other guys where system fit is going to be key, right? Like Josiah Stewart, system fit is going to be key for him. You can't just put him in a even front, right? And say, hey, stand up against the run, rush the quarterback, put your hand in the dirt. No, he's got to be in a specific defense that gives him a chance to thrive. But it's a good group of edge rushers. Got one comment and then we'll get out of here. Kevin, been a member for 9 months. Really appreciate you. Writes, Lou, please watch Scorton at Purdue versus Michigan DN1. I watched him. I watched that game. I know what he is. I know what Nick Scorton is. And I know what he can be. And I watched him. He had double-digit sacks in 2023. And I went back and watched him. He had 2 sacks in that Michigan game. He was good. It doesn't change the way I feel about him. I know who he is. I know who he is. Anyway, I digress. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 2025 NFL Draft Prospects Series Edge Rusher Edition. We're now going to move to the next position in the series, and that's wide receiver. So we will dive into that position and continue to forge forward until we meet the 2025 NFL Draft. And so we'll get to the wide receivers next, and then after that, we'll get to the tight ends, and then we'll continue to push through. We'll get to the defensive tackles and defensive line. in particular after the tight ends. And so we'll just continue to knock down all of these positions one by one. And so I will see you guys next time. Louie T Network podcast going down tonight for sure. So hopefully you will join me for that. We got a lot to talk about, a lot of rule changes, things that the NFL have voted on. They've decided to table some things. You're going to see some new rule changes. We'll talk about all those things, among other topics. So hopefully you'll be joining me for that a little bit later on this evening. But until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. Peace.